One Hell of a Team by Neon Sanketsu, Chapter 5, Not My Destiny. It's wonderful to finally meet you in person, Minato. I'm so glad you decided to enroll your son in my school. His records, well, they speak for themselves. You've trained no shortage of skilled students over these last few years, and many of them have made their homes here. I simply must thank you for that. Your gym has done wonders, both for this generation and the next. They certainly have, haven't they? But before we begin, I'd like to have a word with you, Ospen. By all means, speak your mind. For a man such as you, I'll gladly make time. All right, no more games. I know what you are, rather, who you are. Do you know? Do you now? And what, pray tell, do you think you know? Tell me, how fares Salem these days, Ozma? I see. Yes, I suppose we should talk. That would be for the best. Beware the flash. Not my destiny. Hello, Beacon. We're finally here. Naruto's fist pumped into the air as they stepped off the airship, punching towards the sunny afternoon with a reckless abandon. His smile wasn't all that stifled by the sight of the campus grounds. If anything, it only seemed to enhance his enthusiasm and make him all the more over-eager than before. His good cheer was contagious. At least Pyrrha felt it was, if only because she couldn't quite hide her own grin behind a palm. If her partner felt at all anxious, he did little to show it. And good cheer, as they say, is contagious. Everyone had crammed into the airship to see them off, then promptly followed them off it. Literally, they were all here. There was Uncle Obito now, drawing Naruto aside to rub his nephew's forehead, whilst a rather bemused Kakashi gave him a stern lecture about being safe. A lecture that made all but invalid as Jiraiya passed his grandson a worn orange tome, and she had time to glimpse an orange cover before Naruto hit it with a sputter. Odd, hadn't she seen Kakashi reading those? Probably wasn't too important. Remember your training? She got the tail end of their conversation. You've come far, but your sage mode isn't complete yet. Yeah. Naruto crossed both arms behind his head. I got it, pervy sage. I thought I told you to stop calling me that. You did. I didn't listen. And be sure to tell me all about your adventures. The old sage cackled merrily. I want all the details of my next book. Ah! His words became a yelp as the boy thumped him aside the head with that very tone. All right. He raised hands and warded off the book when he came back for a second pass. Such a spoil sport. Guess you really do love. Ow! Naruto managed to brain him when he wasn't looking. Say that again, and I'll thrash your ass. Besides, green eyes narrowed as she espied the cover. Wait, was that the book that she thought it was? Here, be sure to dress warmly. Aunt Rin all but materialized at her side before she could act on her suspicions, blocking her with her body. Let the boys have their fun. I have something for you. Even as she tried to offer a protest, Obito's wife wrapped a loose amber scarf around the pale expanse of her exposed neck. Wouldn't want to catch cold now, would we? Thank you. Pyrrha accepted it with mumble thanks, momentarily distracted from her anger by this most gracious gift. The fabric was warm and soft in her hands. No, more than that, it almost felt alive. If she focused, she swore she could feel a heartbeat gently moving in time with hers. Preposterous. Fabric wasn't alive. Or was it? There you go. That right there. A finger tickled her chin. That's trucker-woven cloth. She blinked when the older woman winkled at her unspoken inquiry. Minato's latest invention. It's good for taking a hit or two. Might help in a pinch. Be sure to keep it close, won't you? Firm hands wrapped it just a bit tighter, almost allowing the fabric to fall all over her heart. Don't you look lovely? A small smile tugged at the ex-champion's lips as she admired herself. Surprisingly, the cloth matched her armor well. Thank you. The words sounded hoarse even to her ears. I'll treasure it. See that you do. The brunette grinned and drew her into a warm embrace. Lips bruised her ears. Look after Naruto, will you? The strong arms drew her just a bit closer. He's the best of Minato, but he's got his mother's temper. Pyrrha's mouth clicked shut. He's never mentioned her. Naruto was full of stories when it came to his family, his father, his aunts and uncles, and even Jiraiya, but of his mother, nothing. More than once she wondered why, and to have that dangled before her, well, was it wrong to try and learn a little of her? That's more heartache than anything else. Rin pulled back with a rueful look. Kushina would have adored you. You have her fire. Her ears began to burn anew. Speaking of parents, Her adoptive aunt looked back in with a sly smile. I'm sure Minato would appreciate it if you could see your way to give him some grandchildren in the near future. The world grounded to a halt. For a wild moment, Pyrrha actually imagined it. Wild red-haired boys with piercing blue eyes, inquisitive green-eyed girls tugging at her skirts. Her mind took the idea and ran with it, conjuring names out of morning mist. Bella sounded like a fine name for a girl, or perhaps Cassandra, maybe even Daniela. Oh, but what about the boys? She'd need names for them, too. Leon sounded nice, maybe. Pyrrha, dear. Rin tugged at her sleeve, snapping her back to reality. You're drooling? No, she wasn't. She tossed her head from side to side frantically. Quite all right. Rin grinned and touched a hand to her own stomach. I've been daydreaming about children myself these days. Pyrrha's eyes widened, got really big. You. When? All her fears and worries were forgotten in an instant. How do you even know? She tilted her head, regarding the woman's still flat stomach. No, not quite flat, but surely it was too early to tell. Rin would have said something earlier. For all her mysterious ways, Naruto's aunt was horrid when it came to keeping secrets. A mother always knows, the brunette preened. I'm only a few weeks along, barely even a month. Pyrrha swallowed once. Does Uncle Obito know? He will. Brown eyes twinkled in quiet merriment. I want it to be a surprise. He'll make a wonderful father, don't you think? What's this about a surprise now? Pyrrha jerked back with a sputter and whipped at her chin as the boys came back, and still no sign of Minato among them. Is he still not here? Jiraiya offered a helpless shrug. That's my people for you. I don't mind. Naruto seemed oddly cheery about that. Dad went on ahead. It's what he does. Oh, don't worry about him. Obito slung an arm around her shoulder. He's probably finalizing some work with the headmaster or something. Naruto, nothing you need to worry about. He can take care of himself. Uncle Kakashi rolled his good eye and looked away. Maybe they should. I still don't trust that man. You worry too much, Sir Grumpy Pants. And you don't worry enough. Now, boys. Rin pulled her way between them. Let's not fight in front of the kids. Both men subsided instantly. Pyrrha felt the ghost of a smile pluck at the corner of her mouth. What did Yang call this? All right, whipped. These two were absolutely whipped. Naruto shrugged, and Pyrrha exchanged a rueful look with him. Truly was a wonderful thing to have such a large family. Some might call it strange to have so many people fussing over her like this. All told, she rather liked it. Beacon's bell rang ahead, calling them to their destiny. Hot on its heels, a woman's voice called out across the courtyard. Will all aspiring report to the auditorium? I repeat, all aspirants to the auditorium. Well, Pyrrha swallowed, surprised to find her throat dry. It would seem this is it. Fate awaits. Naruto wavered beside her. Be seeing you guys. Be safe. Rin wasn't having any of it. Naruto was still speaking when she dared in and drew the two of them into one last hug. Obito saw his chance and pounced, dragging Kakashi with him. It wasn't long before Jiraiya joined them, though not with the bemused roll of the eyes that had Naruto clicking his tongue. Pyrrha felt tears sting her eyes. This wasn't the end, she told herself, only the beginning. Naruto slung an arm over her shoulders. Pyrrha leaned into it. Soon all her worries were swept away, like cinders in the wind. Think they'll be okay? Yup. Rin watched them with a fond smile. They've got this. Now then, Obito pivoted on one heel. Let's deal with the little rats that's been following us. Behind them, a hooded figure detached itself from the airship. It didn't get far before they gave chase. Nope, not far at all. Beacon really was incredible. Pyrrha had heard no end of tall tales about it, but to see it firsthand, well, it was an experience. Seeing was believing and all that. Tall arched spires and grand architecture aside, it was very much as she thought it would be, a place of light and peace, of hope and future. They would be spending the next 4 years here. Her and Naruto both had hoped that they were very much the stragglers here, while they'd bonded with family and friends. Everyone had gone ahead of them. Alone they had ample time to admire everything as they made their way towards the auditorium. She was glad for that. Perhaps that was so. Naruto nudged her with an elbow as they walked. What do you think of team names? And Pyrrha's neck craned towards him, somewhat startled. Isn't it a little early to be worrying about something like that? Nah, his grin outshone all her fears. Forewarned is forearmed after all. I want to be on the team with you, of course, but if you don't... No. She flung She lunged forward and clasped his arms with hers. I want to be with you too. Their faces flamed as the enormity of her words caught up to them a moment later. Pyrrha's spine rebooted. Her eyes blinked once, twice, thrice. Oh dear, was it hot out here? Naruto's face was a startling shade of red, and she was sure that had she a mirror, her own pale visage would have matched her hair. Rin whistled from the landing zone. That's my girl. Not like that. She jerked back with a yelp. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it, but my heart isn't ready for. Once again, Naruto's laughter spilled off all her fears away. Yeah, I get what you mean. Don't worry. His shoulders brushed his. This'll be grand. She took a moment to contemplate matters further as they walked side by side. She felt his shoulders brush hers and leaned into him a little. Too shy to hold his hand in public, she nevertheless reveled in quite comfort of his proximity as her hip nudged against his. What team did she want? In an ideal world, she would prefer a group that would be a threat to her, mentally as well as physically. Just a band of friends or even perfect strangers if she was lucky. No, Yang and Ruby or Malachites to drive her up the wall and into the ceiling. John might be nice. He was a good friend. Really, anyone but those three would do. But as Pyrrha well knew, the world was not ideal. Sometimes you got what you bargained for, and sometimes the world threw you a wicked little curveball when you least expected it. Still, no matter what came, she swore she would be ready for it. She would not falter. She would not fail here. She was Nikos after all. So, Naruto grinned. How does Team Pineapple sound? Pyrrha couldn't help but giggle at him. That sounds absolutely horrid. Alright, but hear me out. How about Weapon or Napalm? They've got a nice ring to them. A wretched explosion shook Beacon's cliffs. Fire flashed across broken earth, baking it to clay and flinging a cloaked form to the ground. Obito sauntered out of the smoke, whistling softly. Burning Sharingan eyes regarded the twisting form at his feet. So, you're Salem's latest pawn. He gave their trembling form a kick for good measure. That's what the second one... the second one this year? Rin butchered the last one of you. When they didn't rise, he dropped down to his haunches to regard them further. Your master really doesn't train you lot all that well, does she? He shook his head. Really, it's sad. You'll never achieve peace like this. Don't weep for the stupid deer. Rin walked over their broken body to perch at his side. You'll be crying all day. The hooded figure groaned unintelligibly. Obito cocked his head like a bemused squirrel. I'm sorry. What was that? Their victim stumbled upright, swaying violently. I said I'll never talk. Everything I do for the sake of my goddess. A burning blade of chakra slammed through their back and burst out the chest. About that, Kakashi hummed in their ear. Your compliance really isn't a factor here. In a single seamless movement, he stepped away and ripped his blade from their back, spattering the earth red. In their dying moments, the assassin actually wept and went into a frenzy, flailing like a madman. They flared their cloak free. Their cloak free with a shriek and slammed a hooked tail up into Obito's face. It was a sound strategy. Attack the one member of the group with their guard down in a fit of pity spite. Really, it should have worked. A single blow, a single kill, until their weapon passed right through him. Literally, it faced through his flesh, leaving him utterly unharmed. Bad choice. Obito shook his head, swayed forward, and kicked them in the teeth. Congrats! Now I have to kill you. Nothing personal. Can't have you messing about with our little nephew. He reached down. Sharingan eyes flashed. So tell me everything before you die. Would you kindly? Tyrian Kalos blinked up at them with blank eyes. Yes, of course, master. Night came with all due swiftness. In truth, Naruto hadn't paid the headmaster's speech much mind, not when his mind was focused on other matters. Really, between Pyrrha being antsy and everyone shooting him sidelong glances, he was well and truly ready for initiation to be over and done with. Maybe then they'd have some semblance of normalcy. Bad joke. Yang was rubbing off on him. Are you sure this is allowed? He flicked Pyrrha a lazy glance as he finished setting out their gear. Don't see why not. It'll be fine. He set his sleeping bag off to one side in a corner behind some audio equipment, the better to have some manner of privacy while he slept. Naturally, Pyrrha had claimed the spot beside him. That suited him just fine. They were partners after all, if not yet in name, then in spirit. It didn't help the glances. No one seemed keen to save them on that front. Cardina had started a pillow fight with some ginger-haired girl, and Joanna had been dragged into it on her side. Really, they were trading blows like champions. Good on him. He really needed a friend after the whole Vomit Boy incident back on the airship. Not far from them and towards the center of the room, he spied Ruby and Yang engaged in a rather heated argument with a spirited white-haired girl. Was that a Schnee? She looked like a Schnee. Whoever she was, she seemed to be ranting about something. Dust in craters. He didn't much get it. Another with dark hair sat only feet away, knees tucked into her chest, golden eyes fixed firmly upon a novel. Poor thing tried to ignore the lot of them, to no avail. She sensed his gaze and looked up. Naruto saw the plight there and shrugged helplessly. Nope, not getting involved in that. Sorry, he mouthed across the way, hoping she could read his lips. Not, just ignore him. The girl favored him with a tiny smile and blew out her candle, plunging her side of the room into darkness. It only made Ruby and Yang squawk all the louder, which in turn riled up their companion. Good lord, the Schnee had a pair of lungs. With a shake of his head, he finished his task and reached for his nap. Guess we should turn in ourselves. Well, if it isn't tall, blonde, and handsome. Naruto's blood ran ice cold. Fate wasn't very kind tonight, it seemed. Pyrrha smacked her head against the wall in a rare moment of anger. She seemed to share his sentiment. No, not now. Not them. Anyone but them. Naruto knew who had called to them even before he pivoted to and saw them. As ever, one wore white to bed while the other favored red. If their garb didn't give them away, their face did. They were twins, after all. Hey, Melanie. He stifled a yawn with the back of his palm and raised a hand in greeting. Milsha, you're here too. Didn't see ya during the speech. Then again, he hadn't looked very hard. Of course we're here. The taller of the two scoffed. Did you think we'd let you just up and leave? Naruto forebore the urge to roll his eyes. In many respects, the Malachite twins were worse than Yang. At least Xiaolong only made the occasional bad joke. These two, well, they weren't mean or rude. They were simply direct. Frightfully direct. They'd come to the Leaf Gym weaker than most, but by the end they had stood in the top 5. Perhaps they'd taken to Dad's methods a little too well. What they lacked in the strength, they more than made up for it in teamwork and tenacity. He didn't mind them. He didn't mind them. Make no mistake. They were good friends. But this was plain bad timing. So, lover boy, Milsha plucked down beside him. This spot taken. Pyrrha plastered a false smile to her face and didn't move from her other side. It is very much not sorry. Melanie grinned. Oh, a little fight in you. I like that. Always knew you were thirsty. Didn't realize you'd gotten grabby wine when we weren't looking. Naruto coughed. Hey, come on now. Come on, Blondie. There's more than enough to go around. She winked up at him. Sure you don't mind if I take a bite? I very much mind. A familiar red and bronze blur interposed in itself between the two of them. Oh boy, knowing what was coming, Naruto winced anew. Somebody just flipped Pyrrha's switch. Do you see this? His girlfriend waved her now clenched knuckles before Melanie's face. This is my fist. You'll be eating this if you touch him without my permission. If she expected the twins to finally get the message, she would be sorely disappointed. Melanie leaned back and smoothed her face across her pajamas. Her grin was firmly of the shit-eating variety. Indeed, she looked like the cat that caught the canary and slaughtered it. Milsha's was possibly predatory by comparison. So, we just need your permission then. She sauntered forward to tap a hand against Pyrrha's cheek. All right. Milsha mirrored her sister's smile. Good to know. And Pyrrha blinked. What? So we just have to seduce you to get to him? Melanie continued on an upbeat, unbeaten. Always like a challenge. Should be fun helping you lighten up a little. Naruto's hand struck his forehead as Pyrrha began to sputter. No, I never said that. I never meant. Too late. The damage had been done. Bye. We'll see you tomorrow. They sashayed away, hips swinging. Resist! Naruto's gaze snapped to the ceiling before Pyrrha could run on him. When she finally did, she found him admiring the skylight. Nothing else? You didn't look. Nope, you did, though. Her pale face turned a lovely shade of red. I did not. Hey, least I know how to seduce you now. He winked. Just got to put some swing in my hips. And Pyrrha uttered a very unladylike snort and hastily muffled it with her fist. Still, she couldn't quite keep the smile from her face. You're trying to cheer me up. That depends. He leaned closer, pressing his forehead to hers. Is it working? Maybe. She looked up at him through her lashes. You really didn't look? Swear on the gods? Swear on my ramen stash. He smacked his lips with an audible pop. Who do you take me for? I'm not about to jump the first pair of legs I see. Come on, let's go to bed. All right. She took his hand with a sigh. Naruto knew she was sulking on the inside. He could only pray that she wouldn't start plotting. Pyrrha could be surprisingly sneaky when she wanted to be. She nudged his side gently. Are you awake? Blue eyes drifted open in the dark, staring at the auditorium ceiling. Even in the dim lighting, they were sharp and keen. Yeah, he answered after a moment's pause. Can't sleep? He didn't protest when she crawled into his sleeping bag. If anything, he gladly made room for her. It was just large enough for both of them, yet so snug as to keep them pressed close all the same. An arm curled loosely around her waist, nothing more. Her blood boiled in her veins, singing a soft fire and desire. Her very soul was afire. She wrinkled closer. Naruto quirked a brow. What are you doing? Her head came up under his chin as her hands sought his face. Being selfish. I swear, that's your new favorite phrase. No, Pyrrha didn't give him a chance to finish. She leaned in and captured his lips with hers. He stirred against her. Gentle hands ghosted across the swell of her breast, bringing with it a feverish well of delight. Her hips rocked against his. The friction felt even through the thick fabric of their pajamas, and she felt him stiffen against her, causing her heart to beat in her chest like a wild colt. Naruto tried to pull away, tried to warn her. We're gonna get caught. I don't care. She kissed him again, and her pulse quickened that much more. What did she care if they were caught now? If someone tried to make a meal of this, they'd get a knuckle sandwich and a thrashing besides. It wasn't their place to intrude. She wanted this. She needed this. If only to remind him of what he meant to her. Not enough. More. Her mouth melted with his softly, sweetly tongue licking at the edge of his lips, questioning for entry. She wasn't that same shy, polite girl anymore. He told her to be selfish, and so selfish she would be. Just a bit, just a little, just when it mattered most. When did you get this bold? He laughed despite her fears, and she pushed him down again, fingers playing with the hem of his shirt. You did this to me, she gasped out. Take responsibility. It was a fiery kiss, all things considered, wild and intent, if reckless with little abandon. She didn't care who saw, close enough to matter, to mean something. She wouldn't let someone else be with her this way, touch her this way, whisper such sweet nothings to her. She didn't want him to look at anyone else the way he looked at her. She wanted to be first. None heard them that night. Thankfully, sleep came soon thereafter. They woke the next morning and made ready with all due haste. What else was there to do but prepare? Neither spoke so much as a word as they ate breakfast, then fetched their lockers to don their armor and weapons. Theirs was a silence not born from discomfort or any such anxiety, but rather trust. The quiet was a soft and gentle one, comfortable even. Everything that needed to be said had already been said the night before. Each trusted that the other would know what to do, and did as such. Help me with this, will you? Pyrrha held up her hair for him, offering the pale expanse of her neck unto his eyes. Naruto felt his throat go dry. His body betrayed him, and he moved. His lips ghosted just under her left ear, and she shivered a little. That's not fair. I need to focus. He laughed against her neck. Oh, I'm very focused right now. She patted at his hand, and Naruto withdrew with a low laugh of his own. Remember? She reached around and touched a hand to her shoulder. Together. His turned out and clasped her arm with a radiant smile as much like his namesake. Together. It was all a blur. Pyrrha held her tongue and listened as Osprey prattled on atop the cliffs, exposing the importance of their test. She tried to listen, she really did, but the stress wouldn't let her. Somehow she managed to recall enough of the important bits. At least she hoped they were important. She didn't have the patience to memorize every tenet of the test. Eye contact once you landed got you your partner. Get a relic, match with another, bring it back to the cliffs. Do all this before the time limit expired and you made it in. Fail. And she didn't want to fail. The thought threatened to paralyze her. Her feet shifted restlessly on the launch pad. Naruto winked, showing her his right arm. He launched just before her, and she tracked him with her eyes. 1 second passed. 2, 3, 4, 5. In a fit of pique, she flared her semblance and triggered her pad ahead of the others. Almost immediately, her world turned on its head. Wind whipped at her face and snapped at her eyes, drawing angry, stinging tears from the ex-champion. She squinted against them, and struggling to find a patch of sunny blonde hair there. Ahead of her, Naruto flung his arms up with a whoop, long sleeve snapping against his sides. She glimpsed something shiny on his left wrist, the one knife sheathed in a gauntlet. A glimmer of metal. He was wearing metal when he never ever did. She realized why when he snapped that hand into the air. Now, Pyrrha! His voice rose above the wild winds. What are you waiting for? Tears stung at her eyes again for a different reason altogether. He'd known. He'd always known. She really did love him. Her hands flew forward and stretched out with her semblance. Her will wrapped around the thin bracelet. A quick tug was all it took to alter his trajectory. She heard an awful pop as his arm protested against the sudden movement, but he didn't cry out, nor did he deviate his path from hers. Too late, she glimpsed the wild grin tearing across his whiskered visage. Only then did she realize what he intended. Look out below! They collided, and together they crashed down into the canopy. Branches tore at their aura, but it held firm, and they fell gracelessly to the forest floor. In hindsight, Pyrrha wasn't sure how long it took, only that it did, a wild tumble that sent them both sprawling. She landed atop him, driving the breath from his lungs. See? He grinned up at her as she pulled away. You knew what I was thinking. Didn't even have to tell you. We're one hell of a team, aren't we? A tan hand reached up to pat her cheek. She nuzzled against it. I told you I'd never leave you alone. A lone tear ran down her cheek. You never go back on your word, do you? Behind them, the brush parted. I'm sorry, a new voice called. Am I interrupting? Naruto's jaw clicked open. Well, didn't see that coming. Pyrrha buried her head in Naruto's chest. It was just too funny. She couldn't help herself. She began to laugh unabated. Fate had a sense of humor, it seemed. Hey! The newcomer huffed and stomped a foot. Stop laughing! Bright eyes flashed in hindsight. This isn't funny. They only laughed all the louder. Cease! Yang howled with laughter. Melanie rolled her eyes. Why am I not surprised? Glinda took a sharp step forward. Begin! Naruto deployed his gauntlet and lunged forward with a roar. Pyrrha was only a step behind him with an exalted grin of her own. Ruby winced as they demolished the arena. Oh geez, since when can they fight like that? That was a fine bout. Someone taught you well. And you are? Fall. The upper year smiled. Cinderfall, 3rd year. It's a pleasure to finally meet you, Pyrrha. Cardin slapped him on the back. See, this is why I like you, boss. You get shit done. Damn straight I do. He raised the brow. You know, there are kinder ways to tell a girl you like her than pulling her ears. To his credit, the larger boy appeared contrite. Yeah, I'll apologize to her. What would you do if someone came along that you never expected? Something or someone that had the potential to stand between you and your destiny? Nope, not gonna happen. And what makes you say that? Because you're my destiny, Pyrrha. Whatever comes, we'll face it together. She found him there. Caesar Nikos was much as she remembered, proud, tall, and far too full of himself. That he was smiling only settled it. Hello, daughter. Father. Pyrrha lifted her chin in naked defiance. He seemed to struggle with the words. I have come to beg your forgiveness, dear daughter. She didn't believe him, not for a moment. Caesar Nikos did not apologize. To apologize was to admit defeat, and he never did. Do you still have that pacemaker? His pale face furrowed in a scowl. I do. Why? Good. Then I can kill you without even touching you. Naruto crashed backwards with a howl of uproarious laughter. That's my girl. End of chapter 5.